This is Patrick Timpone, and it's good to be back with you live after, well, almost a week off of recorded shows because of the holidays, and it's trying to get my sea legs here. It is December 29, 2009, and this is OneRadioNetwork.com. OneRadioNetwork.com. Got kind of a fun week for you. We did a nice show with Adrian Salbucci from Argentina yesterday about the financial stuff, and then our weekly rendezvous with Andrew Goss tomorrow as we wrap up 2009 with lots of fun things to talk about as far as money, how it works, how it really works on the macro level, micro level with Andrew Goss and the real world of money. Information I suspect that you're not going to find anywhere else in the world, and this man explains it in a way where we really understand how this game is played. On Thursday, more about money, this year-end kind of review and the financial end of it with Rob Kirby up in Canada. Also, we're going to talk with John Hogue tomorrow, who has some predictions for 2010. He's a great authority on Nostradamus. So that'll be on this week. So it's kind of a financial, kind of a worldly, kind of macro thing. And we normally talk about health. And then, so tying right in with that this morning is no exception. A gentleman that, boy, he really thinks and reads and writes and talks about these kinds of things. His name is Jay Weidner, and he has written lots of books and about alchemical traditions, hermetic traditions. He's been called one of the foremost erudite conspiracy hunters, kind of an Indiana Jones guy. They said on his website he looks and finds out what's going on in the spiritual world and the spiritual destiny of the world. A lot of films, including 2012, The Odyssey, Time Wave 2013, Jay Weidner, WEIDNER.com. Well, Mr. Weidner, thanks for being with us, and how are things up on the West Coast?
Well, they're cold right now. We're having an El Nino-generated freeze, I guess you could say.
And I think that's been affecting us here in Central Texas, where we broadcast from. But lots of rain this winter, more rain than we've had after about 2 years of a drought or 3 years.
Yeah, well, you guys need it. So
oh, we really did.
You do, yeah.
I guess it's here we are in the last part of 2009, Jay Weidner, and I think one would have to be living in a cave or just not thinking very, say, clearly or rationally to know that there is something going on spiritually as we speak that's probably maybe never has gone on this planet or this go around. When I say something like that, first off, do you agree? And then if you do, how does that read for you? What does that come to your mind? I mean, what does that really mean to us from your studies and yours as you sit there in 2009 here at the end of the year?
Well, I think what basically most people don't really understand is that everything emerges from the spiritual first, and then it goes into the material. So it's not the opposite way, which I think a lot of people think that things start in the material and then they advance through meditation or prayer or just life, they advance into the spiritual. No, it's the opposite way. Things start in the spiritual and then manifest in the physical. And so what you see going on here with the incredible economic problems, the highest unemployment rate in 80 years, the destruction of more species on Earth than at any time since the dinosaurs died out. You're seeing we're running out of water, all these physical problems. And then there's also some incredible physical things that are going on that are amazing, like the internet and
sure.
Global internet and all these things, global trade and all this. And so what we're really seeing is the physical manifestations of a spiritual change, and that spiritual change is going to knock the socks off of every single thing that exists on the material level, and that's why you're seeing all these things. And so people like the Mayans and the alchemists and the Hindus and the indigenous traditions like the Cherokee, and the Chumash in California, they predicted that this was coming, and they didn't predict it because they were some kind of telepathic geniuses. They did it because they knew that spiritual evolution depends on time, and that every time we go into one of the major signs, fixed signs of the zodiac, we're in for some really serious stuff. And we're passing from Pisces to Aquarius, and Aquarius is one of the fixed signs. In Ezekiel, he sees an angel with 4 faces, and the angel has the face of a man, a bull, a lion, and an eagle. And these are the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. The eagle is Scorpio, the Taurus is the bull, the lion is Leo, and the angel is Aquarius. And we are now heading into an age like that. And this is not the end of the world, but it is the end of an age. And when we reach the end of an age, everything goes to hell. And then it regroups and comes back at a different level.
Well, the Fifth Dimension predicted it, right? About 30 years ago, the age of Aquarius. That's great. I remember that song. I was a disc jockey in Armed Forces Radio, and we played that. And now I just thought of that when you said that, Jay, and said, wow, they knew. Well, let's go back to what you said, and thanks for that great intro, because that really, I think, sums it up as far as your host goes. And, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but...
Neither do I.
Yeah. But this idea of soul and spiritual change, and so we can say then, between you and I and the listeners who will just that we're soul, right? We're spiritual beings. I mean, can we all agree on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're so spiritual change. So do you think then that soul as a one big oversoul, or one big soul with all us, each individual souls, unique souls, that we are all growing spiritually kind of like at the same time?
Yeah.
How does that work, though, Jay, in your mind, if we all have free will, which I know we do, so we all incarnated here to kind of have a party together, do you think?
Yeah, a little bit like that. I think we have to remember this thing about free will. We all have free will. That means that we can choose where to go in any moment, okay? But there is destiny and fate, okay? And there is a map, let's say. And so, yeah, if you're traveling from Los Angeles to New York, you have free will to go down to Texas first, hit Florida, go up the East Coast, or go up to California, travel across North Dakota into Canada to get to New York, or you can take, Freeway 80 or 70 and get right there as fast as you want. Yes, you have the free will to choose which way you're going, but you do not have free will to stop where you're going. You're going to go to a certain place. How you get there is your choice.
Yeah, but if we don't have free will only to a point, then it's really not free will. It's free will with an asterisk on it.
It is. It's a caveat. It's not. It's free will, but it's free will within the game plan.
Yeah, but could it be free will? Let's speak for Patrick, that I chose to be here at this time because I knew that there was going to be some really curious things happening. So I thought, well, this would be a great time to incarnate because then I can evolve spiritually. So even though mountains may fall down or some dumb stuff, it was still my choice to be here.
Definitely.
Because my destiny is God realization.
That's right, and you came here, and I do believe that you came here, and I did too, for this moment. I think we all did.
Yeah.
And so you chose to come here for this moment, realizing that you have no control within that moment. In other words, you don't have any control over what's really going to happen here on a physical level. You came here to groove with it and to dig it and to understand it and to let it take you. So it's the best analogy is really the surfer. I'm an old surfer, and a surfer has to be a good athlete. It's true, but a good athlete will not make you a good surfer. A good surfer is what makes a surfer good is not athleticism. What makes a surfer good is intuitive knowledge of how waves work. And he doesn't force the wave. He knows how to ride the wave. And so we're surfers. And yes, we have free choice. The wave is coming at us, and we can turn our surfboard left, right, ride the nose, get to the back of the board, whatever we think will help us ride the wave better. But there's no way that you're going to control that wave.
Because can we say we created the wave, so why do we want to change it?
We don't want to change it.
We don't want to change it, right?
No, we like it. We want it. We should embrace it.
Yeah.
We should embrace this change that's upon us. We should say hallelujah. That's what I'm saying. And people say, oh, Jay, you're so negative. I say, I'm not negative at all. I'm the most optimistic guy in the world. I think this is the greatest thing that's ever happened.
Well, that's why I wanted to have you on, because I saw some of your YouTube clips that a listener was nice enough to send us, and I said, wow, that's interesting, your concept, because, well, that's kind of the way your host feels, so I like to talk.
Good.
Yeah. Here's our phone number. Let's invite the listeners in if they care to communicate with us live here this morning, December 29. It is 888-663-6386, 888-663-6386, and also emails. We're live here. I have a computer right in front of me, Patrick at OneRadioNetwork.com. Jay Weidner, Weidner, is a great website, jayweidner.com. Produced a lot of films, written a lot of books, and really thinks about these things. And we'll talk about Nostradamus and the Mayans and all these folks, and talk about you as soul and what the heck you and I are doing here in 2009. So I've always been a little curious about the concept of, let's say, universal or global or world karma and Patrick's karma. In other words, say, let's take it down to the more basic level. If Patrick creates his own reality here in Dripping Springs, Texas, then I should be able to create the kind of weather that I want to grow my food, right?
Yeah.
But then also now my neighbor, who only lives, half a mile down the road in this country area, he or she can do the same thing. And we say, well, wait a minute. Now, how can... She can't create a drought, and I have to participate in her drought. I mean, how do we deal with that?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. And this idea that you can create your own reality is very, very true. Okay? So then this is the whole basis for spiritual traditions. What are these traditions trying to teach you? And what they're trying to teach you is not that you can control your own reality. That was already a given to our ancient ancestors. What they were concerned with is, are you smart enough and wise enough to create your own reality? And indeed, they told people to not create their own reality until they were spiritually adapted. And that's the problem with today, is everybody knows the secret being that you can create your own reality. But what they don't realize is the wisdom behind it. The Chinese have a saying, be careful what you wish for, because you will get it. So if you wish that it was a nice hot day and you get a drought that lasts for 2 years, that's your fault. So be careful what you wish for. So you can wish for, you can want to have a house in Beverly Hills with 17 women, and have sex all the time and all the money you want, but is that really what you want? And you ever see this movie Bedazzled?
Yeah.
Okay, so he wants to be rich. The devil gives him a wish. He says, I want to be really wealthy. And he wakes up and he's a Colombian drug dealer. Okay? Well, he's wealthy, but now the American military is coming at him with 150 helicopters shooting him in the movie. And so the movie's very instructive on this. He got what he wanted, but it wasn't what he wanted.
It's so interesting that you say that. I was on a chiropractor's table a few weeks back, and we were talking about this kind of thing, creating our own reality, and real sweet gal, and she goes something like, well, I really would like to learn how to do that. And before I even thought about it, I just said to her very kindly, well, you do it all the time.
You do.
I mean, and I walked out of there, and of course I know that I do, but everybody wants to create their own reality and go to a movie or read a book and learn how to do it. But Jay Weidner, darn it, we are creating our own reality every moment of our life. We're already very good at it. Thank you.
Well, we are. We're living our dreams, and
we are very good at it. This is what it is, man.
Yeah.
Right? This is what we've created.
We have created it, and and sometimes you have to live with it.
Well, not only sometimes, I would argue all the time, unless you're willing to just jump off.
Well, I mean, President Bush created his own reality and started 2 wars, and he has to live with it, and we have to live with his reality.
Well, we created President Bush.
We did, and so we have to say to ourselves, the next time we create a reality, let's do it with a little more wisdom.
That's right, and maybe that's what this whole, I
think that's what's exactly going on. I think we're maturing from children to adults. I think the human race, because of the internet and spiritual things that are going on, we're now evolving from a child to an adult. And what is the difference between a child and an adult? A child wants everything now. It doesn't really think about what it wants. It just wants it now. And the adult sits and contemplates what it really wants, what he or she really wants, and chooses wisely. A person who doesn't do that isn't really an adult, even if they may be 6'5" and weigh 220 pounds and gone to college and everything. They're still a child. So we are maturing as a species and a race right now. This is the spiritual thing that's going on. And we're looking and we're having a gigantic, huge discussion on radio and television and the internet about what we're going to be. And it's a fierce and sometimes very, very terrifying debate. And the forces that want to hang on to the reality that was are virulent and audacious, and they're going to keep going like they're going. And the ones who are saying no, there's other ideas, there's other ways to do things, they're going to have to keep fighting in order to get what they want. But it's going to a place. What that place is, I don't know. I hope it's a place. See, we're at this crossroads for humanity at the moment. It's a very, very dangerous place. They'll go one way on the intersection, and we're heading into a Terminator future with surveillance cameras and machine cops and armies that can't be killed coming after anyone who dares to think differently from what the powers that be want. And there's another road that says we can, the great creative spirit of humanity can come loose here. We can go back into a more natural setting. We can become creative artists and scientists and philosophers and grow our own food and treat each other nice and have good education for our children. So we have this incredible bifurcation going on, and we are making the choice right now, and I don't know what choice we're making. I'm trying to move the argument into maybe the latter thing that I just said is more important than the former, and the powers that be are using fear and terror to try to scare us into a kind of a fascist techno nightmare, and I don't want that world.
Jay, when you say when we create, and I really appreciate where you're coming from, and we're attempting to do similar kind of a vision here on OneRadioNetwork.com with going for the good and helping each other, but I have no business, though, wanting anything for Jay Weidner and his family, do I? I mean, that's not my business. I can help and to hear for Jay, to help him all he can. If he asks for help, how do you grow this food, or how do you do this? Sure, I'll help you. Or, do you have any extra food? Sure, I got some extra herbs. But do you think it's kind of appropriate for me to want a certain kind of world for Jay Weidner, Patrick, wanting a certain kind of world for you?
No, I'd rather have you. I'd rather have you create the world that you want, because I believe firmly that outside of a few psychopaths and crazies, that everybody pretty much wants the same thing.
Oh, I see. As spiritual beings, we all kind of want peace, love, and hippie beads deep down.
Well, we do, and I think that there's a great resistance going on against that, but basically we all want the same thing, and even rock hard conservatives like Rush Limbaugh, when it gets down to it, they really want the same thing too.
Yeah, he probably just wants to go home and drink a beer and watch football game and have good friends and not
exactly. But we're all caught up in this idea that there's something horrible about, unknown territory. And it isn't horrible. It's a great thing, and that we should go down the path into the wilderness with fervor and great excitement and no fear. Absolutely no fear. I'm absolutely convinced that fear is what is destroying us as a species.
Oh, that's a mind killer, isn't it?
It is, and there's nothing to fear because the only thing you have to fear is your death, and there is no death.
And there is no death, so,
So what are you afraid of? Stand up when somebody tells you to do something and you don't think it's right. Don't do it. Stand up and tell them that it's wrong. I said, I don't understand. We have to start doing that. We have to take a Gandhi-esque attitude towards this whole thing. We're not going to be violent, but we're certainly going on strike if they're going to keep forcing us to do things that we don't want to do.
It's kind of like they say, are you Patrick Timpone? Well, excuse me, who wants to know?
Yeah, exactly.
and what is this regard to?
That's how I approach everything. And it's like, who are you? Why do you want to know this? And I'm not afraid anymore to tell people when I think they're just dead wrong. And I don't make a lot of friends doing that. But at the same time, I have to live with myself. And so a lot of people are not very wise, and they're following the words of leaders who do not have their best interests at heart. And so I'm doing everything I can to say, no, we need to say we're not going to live that life anymore. We're not going to eat their crappy food. We're not going to send our children to fight in their armies. We're going to take care of ourselves. We need to create a separate and completely parallel culture to the one that exists, not because we're angry and not because we don't like them. We're doing it to set an example. So when they see our culture, the one that we're going to make, the one that we are making, they'll say, those hippies across the street look pretty happy.
Yeah, I think, let's go see what they're doing, man, because I'm getting tired of blowing people up.
Exactly. And they're going to come over, they're going to find how nice and warm and everything is, and our ranks are going to grow, and they're going to grow. But first, we have to actually live it. We have to live it, and we have to live it now. And it's happening. It's happening among the younger people. I know it's happening in Texas. I get a lot of emails from people. It's happening, and it's happening in a big way, and there's nothing that can stop it. And the reason that it's happening is because our argument is so good that it can't be argued against. And so there's no hope for the world that is. There's a lot of hope for the world that's being created. And
so do you suppose then, and I really resonate to what you're saying, that the world that we see out there in the media of the Afghanistan and the GMO foods and all this, and all this stuff, that's gonna, I suppose, do you think, Jay, that's gonna go on and continue on its own karmic kind of path?
I do.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
It's not going to go away. Don't expect any miracles.
It's not going to know peace on earth and all that stuff. Right?
Not right away. Yeah. No. This thing has to go all the way to its ugly end. And they and all the people that wished for that world and sought to build that kind of world are going to have to watch it come to its ugly end. We need to say, you're wrong, stop doing it, stop it. No has to be our favorite word from here on in. We have to learn to be strong and learn how to say no. And we say, no, you're not going to put that kind of crap here. No, we're not doing that. No, we're not doing it. And when they finally see that there's no way to stop our resistance, our passive resistance, then the change begins. And the biggest hit right now is Avatar, and a lot of people are criticizing it because they think it's a stupid movie.
I haven't seen the movie.
Well, Avatar is a very interesting film, and I think it might end up being the biggest hit of all time. And
is it worth going to see?
Pardon me?
Is it worth going to see?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
And but what's interesting about the film is that we were watching the film, my wife and I, and there was all these ads at the beginning of the films nowadays, which I hate, and there was this very Wagnerian advertisement for the National Guard with Wagner music, and it was very Nazi and scary, and in the movie, the same people that are being glorified in the National Guard ad are the villains in the movie. And they go to a planet and they're destroying the entire planet, for mining purposes, and they call the people that are trying to defend the planet terrorists. And I just, whatever people want to say is fine, but I'll tell you what, I almost stood up and just started applauding at that moment that James Cameron had the guts to actually say that the people who are terrorizing are calling the people who are defending themselves terrorists. And I think that is a big moment. I do. I think it's a big sea change for everyone. And the fact that this is a big hit movie, and it certainly cannot be making the Pentagon very happy. So
very interesting.
Very interesting, and getting more interesting.
It's so curious to me because I had no idea this conversation was going to take this turn from the beginning, but I love it. Is that you have been going on and digging in caves and writing books and of all the alchemy and hermetic kind of thing and mysterious stuff and Nostradamus and all this. And it's got you back to this point in your life when you say, I'm here, or I'm a soul. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm free, and I'm going to do the best I can here. Isn't that a curious path?
My path has been very curious. I was an atheist. I worshipped science. I was a journalist. I covered murders and robberies, and I was very good at it. And the cops would always ask me what my opinion on cases were, because my opinion generally came out to be right. And then I found this book on alchemy and decided to debunk the book because I thought it was a bunch of crap, and ended up, after about 20 readings, realizing that it was all true, and here I am. Proof that anything can happen in this world.
Yeah. What is, how do you define alchemy? You wrote a book, what's the name of your book?
Mysteries of the Great Cross of Henday and A Monument to the End of Time are my two books. Secrets of Alchemy is my DVD, and I have a new film out called Infinity, The Ultimate Trip, Journey Beyond Death, which you can get at sacredmysteries.com. But basically, alchemy is what we're talking about. It's the transmutation of matter through spiritual ideas. And everything is alchemy. Okay, but what we're seeing today, and what was predicted by the alchemist who built the Great Cross of Henday 400 years ago, is that this was the moment. Alchemists are derided by science because these guys were considered insane because they did the same experiments over and over and over, expecting a different result, which is, of course, one of the definitions of insanity, to keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting something different to happen.
Right.
But what the alchemists were doing, what the scientists don't understand, is they were doing the same experiment over and over, not because they expected a different result, but because the quality of time changes. And an experiment done at one time is different than an experiment done at another time. Science only accepts that which can be done over and over. So they do something, and if they can repeat it, then it becomes science, okay?
But it's a different moment in time.
But science rejects that which changes through time. It says that that's not science, which may be true. So they found cold fusion in '89, and then they said, oh, we found a way to generate more electricity than we put in the experiment. And everybody said, oh, really? And then, so this was in New York, and somebody in Colorado tried it, and it didn't work. And somebody in California tried it, and it did work. And somebody tried it in Canada, and it didn't work. And somebody tried it in England, and it did work. And the whole scientific world was completely befuddled by this cold fusion thing, and why it would work in some places and why it wouldn't work, and why it would work in some times and wouldn't work in others. And that's because the quality of time, their time has like a quality, an element, and it changes. Just as midnight is different from noon, okay? Just as sunrise is different from sunset. The time changes, and the firmament of time is different and changes, and that's what's going on right now. The actual quality of time, the substance of time is being altered, And that's what the Mayans knew, and the alchemists knew, and the Tibetans knew. They knew that at this point in time, and this is what the zodiac is watching. This is why the 4 fixed signs of Ezekiel are so important to Christianity, because they're saying that when we go into a fixed sign of the zodiac, and there's only 4, when we go into one, you guys better get ready. Because
fixed sign. What does a fixed sign mean?
Okay, there's 12 signs of the zodiac, right, and there's 4 fixed signs, and the 4 fixed signs are Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio. And every 6,500 years, we pass into another one of the fixed signs. 6,500 years ago, we went into Taurus. Interestingly enough, that's right when cattle breeding started. That's right when farming started. That's right when city-states started forming in the Middle East. That's when kingships started coming in. It's when Egypt started. So we can see that at the time of Taurus, 6,500 years ago, there was amazing historical changes. So then we go back to the previous fixed sign before that, which was Leo, 13,000 years ago, and what do we find? We find incredible extinctions of woolly mammoths and giant tree sloths and saber-toothed tigers, and we find the beginning of the ice ages, and we find all of this stuff, this tremendous tumult that happened 13,000 years ago, the most incredible climate changes and extinctions. And then we can go back 4 fixed signs ago to the time of Aquarius, the last time we went into Aquarius, which was 26,000 years ago. And what do we see? We see the emergence of Cro-Magnon, the disappearance of Neanderthal. So we can see that there are historical parallels and anecdotes to every one of these times that we passed through one of the fixed signs of the zodiac.
And we're going into, what happened to Scorpio?
No, Scorpio was 17,500 years ago, and that's a little more difficult to pinpoint because of historical inaccuracies. But if you look at the work, I'm going to forget the name of the scientist from Bolivia who did work at Lake Titicaca at the ruins there. He came to the conclusion that the ruins that are built around Lake Titicaca were built 17,500 years ago because of the way the sun alignments worked, and that is right at the beginning of Scorpio. So we can see that the biggest, largest artifact of the New World was built right at the beginning of the age of Scorpio. And I mean, these stones up near Lake Titicaca are the size of houses, and they go up, piled on top of each other, 7 or 8 of them. And they're all perfectly grooved together. There's no gap between the stones. How in the world did people at 12,000 feet high in the mountains carve and lift and build these stone monuments? And none of this can ever be answered, of course, but you can see that the ancillary evidence is there for great changes. I started this work 15 years ago and talking to people said, nothing's going to happen, Jay. Nothing's going to change. You're just blowing it out. You don't know what you're saying. And now here I am, a scant 3 years away from the target date of when this great spiritual change is to take place. And all the people that said I was wrong and I should shut up and be stupid are now in my camp. And I'm on radio shows and saying the same thing they said 15 years ago, but now people can see and feel and touch that there is something going on, that it isn't a fantasy, that something serious, something amazing, something awesome is occurring, and it's time for us to wake up the rest of them.
So in that time of the December of 2012, is that somehow pinpointed of a time, Jay Weidner, when we go into Aquarius?
I do believe that. Well, I believe we're going into Aquarius actually right now. 2010, I think, is when we're passing into Aquarius.
Because change never really just happens like blop. No, we're always changing, right? It's always
don't expect any sudden changes because they're already happening.
Sure.
I mean, the changes are here. The changes are going on so fast you can hardly handle it. So if you're expecting some great thing on December 21st, 2012, you're going to be really, really disappointed. But if you keep track of what's happening right now, you can see that the only reason that they chose that date was because it was auspicious, because it's a winter solstice, the alignment of the galaxy with the sun, and so it really and truly the Mayans are just saying that it's noon, that it's a big clock and it's noon, and at noon, this event will have been completed, and so we have 3 more years, and the changes of the next 3 years, I fully believe, are going to be even more astounding than the changes of the last 3 years.
And you hear the term, well, things are happening more quickly, but if there's not really time, can it be argued that it seems more quickly because there are more changes?
Yes, that's exactly right. There are more changes, so there's going to be more things happening, and the powers that be, are really worried because they don't know if they can handle all this. They don't know if it's possible to handle all this. The worst problem that they face is because of the internet, everyone's waking up at once. It's in the old days when I was young, a rich guy let me into his library, 10,000 books of esoteric nature, and I read every one of them, and he let me do it for free. I didn't have to buy it, and this is information that no one could get. This is 25 years ago. No one could get this information, and so I was a man sitting on a powerhouse of information with no one to talk to, no one to relate to, and really kind of left bereft. And then the internet came, and I didn't have much hope for the internet when it first started. But now, if I get on the internet and I type in all these strange things that I knew about, that no one knew about 20 years ago,
it's right there.
They're all there. They're all there. Everything's there, all of it, all the weirdness. Now, you have to know how to look, which is a big problem with the internet because browsing is not easy, but it's all there. So a kid, who wants to really know what's going on today doesn't need a rich guy with a library. If he knows how to browse through the internet and he knows what questions to ask, he will find, or she will find, all the answers there. So that is what's scaring them more than anything. They thought that the internet was going to facilitate their military and corporate world, which it has, but they never realized that information, as my old friend Terence McKenna said, information is escaping from the cave and it's getting loose all over the planet. And when that happens, there is nothing anyone can do about it.
And I think it can be argued, no matter how many internet rumors you hear about the end of the internet, that there's simply no way that they ever could, because it's just
it'd be like cutting your vascular system out.
Yeah, you just couldn't do it.
No, and here's the thing. Okay, let's say that they do. Let's say they get so PO'd that they decide to censor the internet. It'll be a joke, because these kids today, they don't even talk in English when they email each other. How in the world are you going to find the keywords to outlaw? Because you can't understand what they're saying anyway. They're all talking in code.
Isn't it curious how souls are figuring out ways how to survive, and even though they may not be conscious of it, but they're figuring it out.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I just love it. Nothing makes me happier in the whole world.
I can tell. That's great. Our phone number, if you care to join us, 888-663-6386, 888-663-6386. We're talking with Jay Weidner, Weidner, and his website is jweidner.com. Here's an email from Emily, and she says, I'm confused about creating my own reality because wishing for something is putting it out in the future, and isn't it always now? What a great question.
That is a good question. That is a great question. Yeah, you're changing, all you're really doing is you're changing your now. All right? So you're not wishing for something in the future. If you really want something, you change now.
You feel it like you've already have it.
That's exactly right. Otherwise, you're faking it. Mm-hmm. You're faking it, okay?
I like
that. So, a guy wants a beautiful woman, right? He sees a beautiful woman, he wants her, right? Okay, so does he just sit in the coffee shop every day and watch her walk by and dream about her? Well, yeah, he could do that. But if he really wants a woman, what's he got to do? So you got to stand up and start talking to her. So I mean, come on, it's not just wishing. It's you got to act, and that's why I'm a little bit worried about the world right now, because everyone is wishing and no one is acting, and I'm trying to get them off the couch to start acting.
Well, can we argue that God helps those that helps themselves?
I certainly believe that.
Or when you pray, move your feet.
I love that one.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
When you pray, move your feet, baby.
I'm with that one all the way.
My spiritual teacher said a great line was that when you do 100%, well, then God's going to kick in the rest. Gotta love that, too.
That's great.
Isn't that great stuff?
No,
so
that's exactly
that's what
right.
it is to you and I. That's how it is to me for Emily. It's this idea that we kind of think from the end, like it's almost like the wish has already been given, and we have to feel that. You know, you feel that sand in your toes and the breeze and the drinks with the umbrellas in them, and pretty soon you'll be in Hawaii.
You're exactly right. I mean, I used to not believe this. I didn't believe any of this. I thought it was the silliest stuff in the world. But you know what? I decided to test the system, and you can test the system. That's what's so great about this. I decided, okay, you know, I had a billionaire, a friend of mine. He told me that he became because he made his own reality, right? And I thought, well, you know, this guy's a billionaire. He's certainly proof, at least in a certain way, that this is true. So I said, okay, I will test it myself. So I said, okay, what do I want to be in this world? And this is a long time ago. And every single thing that I thought of on that day has come true. Okay? And it didn't, and so I changed my attitude in the moment. I no longer wanted to be someone who one day would be a great writer or a great filmmaker. I just became a great writer and a great filmmaker. And I was already that before I ever made a film.
Yeah.
And so when I made the film, I started making films, and I said, God, you're so confident for someone who really doesn't know what they're doing, and you just seem like you know. I said, I've been doing this for 15 years. This is finally now I'm actually doing it, you know. And that's how you have to be. Terrence McKenna once said to me, and I couldn't figure it out. He used to say to me years and years ago, he said, Jay, we must learn to live as if the apocalypse has already occurred. And I thought, what in the world does that mean? And then, years go by, and Terrence died, and still thinking about that sentence, and then one day it just hit me. Of course, we must live our lives as if this world here, the one that we're looking at, has already gone away. And in other words, we must live our lives to show the people that this is how the world of the future is going to be. And then they will see it and they will join us. We must live our lives as if the apocalypse has already occurred, as if this society has already been washed away and a new society is here. That is how we must live.
And that way we can do it, Jay Weidner, without a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, or a lot of, well, we got to hurry up, and we're going to run out of food next Tuesday, and all this stuff.
That's what we don't want.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we don't want. That's what the powers that be want, by the way.
What do you mean?
They want you to be panicked.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They want you to be afraid. They cannot control you through anything else but fear. And so they're constantly trying to make us afraid. And frankly, I'm getting tired of it. And I pulled the plug on my TV finally, and I don't listen to radio hardly except for shows like this. And because everybody's just trying to get me to be afraid.
Sure.
And that is their mechanism. And that's why I made this new film, Infinity, The Ultimate Trip, because the whole point of the film is to make you not be afraid of death. And I believe that once we, as a collective group, do realize that there is no death, then when these guys come and tell us that they want to draft our kids or that we have to eat their crappy food, we just say, no, I'm sorry, we're not really going to do that anymore. And
I'm not going to take advantage of your services. Thank you.
Sorry, you can go back to Washington and I'll pay my taxes and everything, but please, do not ask me to do that. I will not do it. I'll go to jail before I do it. And when we do that, then they're just going to throw up their hands. The whole thing is going to collapse, and I believe this is imminent. I really do. I don't believe it's going to be a violent revolution, but I believe there is a spiritual revolution happening that is so huge that these guys not only know it, but they're terrified of it. And I'm not speaking speculatively. Ron Paul came out about a year ago, and so they're called an emergency session in Congress, and although he couldn't say what it was because they have an oath to not repeat what was going on in there, he said it was about imminent upheaval in the United States.
And I think it's real curious what happened over the past few days. I, like you, do not have a television, do not choose to participate, but heard on the radio about this thing that happened on Christmas, this man, whoever he was, and he had this lap bomb, and now they say, I heard on the radio this morning, well, we're just going to need to change travel the way we know it, and you can't get up the last hour of the flight because this man got up about 10 minutes before the flight, and it's like this so most bizarre thinking and rationalization why they think that they can do these things to people.
That is so great.
I just can't. It's so absurd. It's like a bad movie when I hear that.
It is. Here, this guy was on every single terrorist watch list.
Right.
His dad, who was the head of a bank in Nigeria, called the FBI and told him that he was worried that his son was a terrorist. Okay, he had gone to Yemen to study with the whoever the crazy mullah is over there that's doing all this, and so who has to change because of what this guy did? We do, not them, not the guys that let him slip through the cracks, not the guys that didn't check, not the guys that didn't that weren't checking the terrorist list and all this. No, they don't have to change. They don't have to start doing their jobs right. No, we have to change.
We can't get up from our seats and
we have to be like little automatons, and they don't want us to travel, and because they're really worried about this dissemination of ideas at this point. The internet really slipped them a Mickey. They really didn't really realize what the internet was going to do to them.
And I think many people are beginning to craft, as you said so eloquently a few minutes ago, Jay Weidner, that people are crafting their lives so they don't have to travel, really, because maybe they intuitively know maybe it's not going to be very fun to do it in 6 months.
Well, it isn't any fun.
It's not any fun now. I don't go near that place, man.
I used to love to travel. Well, why would I go through that torture? I get invited to, all these conferences, and I turn them down, and everybody says, well, why do you turn it down? I say, because I don't want to.
Who wants to go through all that?
If I could drive there, maybe, but, I'm not going to go through that. Being watched by a bunch of fascists and being searched, and God knows what strip search is going to be next, I guess, is what they're saying. So we're all going to have to get strip searched before we go on the plane because some idiot, packed some gunpowder in his pants. It's like, you got to be kidding. And
if he truly wanted to blow up the plane, let's just be real here, he just would have stayed in the bathroom and did it.
But that is exactly right. I mean, there's so many holes in the story.
That whole thing is just so weird, man.
I think it's a contrived incident.
It's got to be. It's got to be just a bit.
Just to scare us.
Yeah.
Just to scare us. They knew the guy was a terrorist. They knew he was an idiot. Yeah. And they put him on the plane. And I'm not saying that it's a conspiracy, but I'm saying that let it slip, let it happen. We'll see what happens. Christmas Eve, the whole thing.
It's pretty strange, man.
Just stinks.
Hey, let me ask you a little bit of an esoteric kind of thing. I wonder what's your ideas of how these people, the Hopis and Nostradamus and all these people, the Mayans, how do you suppose, I'm just real curious, that they knew long ago, and they didn't have the internet back then. It's not like they got together and had a meeting to talk about this. I mean, so there's something going on because these folks all talked about it. Do you have any ideas in general, Jay Weidner, how these folks really figured out that all this stuff was going to be going on now?
Yeah, because
just cycles kind of thing.
And we that you actually see the world upside down. And that your brain writes the world so that you can see it right side up.
I believe that? No, I don't know that.
That's true.
I've seen that. I've heard that for animals.
Yeah, the way that light passes through the retina of the eye, we're receiving every single image that we see upside down. And I can explain this, but why bother? Go look it up on the web. And our brain, being a very nice organ, writes everything up so that we can hunt and drive and do all the things that human beings have to do, right? Okay. Time is not linear. We made time linear so that I could talk to you this morning at the same time.
Yes.
For convenience only did we make linear time, so we could meet for lunch, so we could get married at noon on Saturday, and everyone would show up at the same time, so that plane flights could land and take off at the right time. But we have mistakenly now think that time really is linear, and it isn't linear. Picasso came home. Picasso's parents sent him to school on kindergarten on the first day of school. He's 5 years old, and he left at 10 o'clock in the morning. He was supposed to come back at 4, and he came back at 11 in the morning. His parents said, "Well, what are you doing?" He said, you got 5 more hours of school. He says, "Well, I don't have to go to school." And they said, "What do you mean you don't have to go to school?" He says, "Well, I'm going to be a great painter. I don't need to go to school." Okay, so Picasso knew from the beginning that he was going to be a great painter. Okay, so we come here with a plan, and nothing's going to change that plan. And time is not linear. That is just a convenience of the technocratic society. Time is effusive. Time is circular. Time is like a whirlpool. Time is you can travel laterally across time, which we frequently do in dreams. And I've dreamed of the future.
Sure. Jay, you know what? And I think that's exactly why some people age and why I am not. And because I cracked the code on this years ago. It's just, if you believe that next Tuesday is so many hours from now, when you live your life like, well, oh boy, when Tuesday comes and well, I'm going to do this and I got to do this, but you know what I mean? And you keep putting it out there like it isn't now, then the body thinks that there is actually a space between now and next Tuesday, and there isn't a space between now and next Tuesday.
That is great. I love that.
And I think that's why people age.
Well, I agree. I think that the people that are aging are people that are constantly projecting into the future.
Yes, and they're creating that space, and the body's got to follow, right?
God, if I just get to my first million, I promise I'll start taking care of myself.
Right.
I know people that actually say this. So when I get my first 10 million, I promise I'm going to start doing yoga and eat better. And I'm like, dude.
I know. God love them,
A, you're never going to get to 10 million, and B, start taking care of yourself now.
And I think it's also, I see so many, God love them, lovely people that get excited about a certain event coming up in their life, and they spend a week being so excited, and of course when it gets there, then you got to be excited about tomorrow. And it's like, you got to age during that week.
It'll take a toll on you.
I think
I know these crazy football fans who all week they spend, just fretting and vexing over what how the game is going to turn out next week, and I'm like, God, geez, man, get a life, I mean,
and it's got to be hard on the body.
It is hard on the body. You look at them and you can see it. They're generally the traces of this. Listen, the body leaves the traces of everything on it, and you can tell somebody's spiritual life by looking at
them. And isn't that why we get attracted to a particular person sometime, and you look at them and you say, man, I got to go out with this girl because you know her, because you can tell everything about her just by the way she looks, and beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
I stand accused of that. The minute that I saw my wife, I was in love with her.
You knew it, right?
I knew it. And she said the same thing to me. We looked at each other across a crowded room, and it was like over.
Isn't that
over?
Interesting?
Everything changed from that moment on. It was instant. And I knew then that, that whatever this is, it's more than we think it is. And we better learn to get a lot of respect for the mystery of this world and realize that is part of the great thing of this universe, is that there's a lot of stuff we don't know, and there's a lot of unexpected things that can happen. And like I was using the surfer analogy, the wave started curling the wrong way. Do you give up, or do you dip your board into that curl? And regular people look at life as a series of ups and downs and good and bads. Warriors, spiritual warriors, look at everything as a challenge.
Yeah.
And I think we need to all become spiritual warriors at this moment in time.
That's great. And I've always thought, Jay Weidner, that if we figure out the man-woman thing, then you got, that's the game. If you could figure out that alchemy, that dynamic of how that really works, I think there's something, I think there's real gold there.
There is, and we're heading towards the gold, but It's not going to be easy. I don't want to get anybody.
No, it doesn't. I think we have to earn that, right? We have to earn that.
We do. The next few years are going to be really tough, and we have to just shake this idea of linear time. We have to shake this idea that there's some incredible, thing that's going to happen some point in our future, which is going to change everything, or there's some great Messiah or Savior is going to come and just save us all, aliens or Barack Obama or Jesus or any of them. Yeah, they may come and save us. It may be true. One of those may come and save us, but don't rely on it. Don't build your life around some Savior. Save yourself.
So then, do you then? I guess with all of your research, can you theorize of say Earth changes in the coming years? Do you think there's going to be a lot of that out there? And if there is, I would suppose then we as soul are just going to know where to be and know where not to be.
I don't think there's anything you can do about it. You are the earth, and when it changes, you change. Yeah, so I think it's really time to. I can go on and tell you that there might be coronal mass ejections and solar flares, and there may very well be. There's problems with the sun going on right now, which is causing the global warming and climate change and a lot of things that has nothing to do with us. I think it's very, very, very arrogant to think that we are so powerful that we can change the very systems of life. But there is things going on. We can wax forever about all of that, but the real point is that we don't know what's coming at us. We shouldn't care what's coming at us. We should prepare now, and we should prepare physically and spiritually, and start building communities and start growing our own food, organic, not GMO, and insisting that our water supplies are clean, finding new ways to educate our children away from the corporate school systems. We've got a wholesale rejection of the culture is what has to happen at this point, and we just have to do it. We have to do it fearlessly and forget the earth changes. Yeah, the earth is always going to change. There's nothing you can do about it. So just go with what the things that you can do and you can change, which is yourself and your family and your community and the way you eat and the way that you live and the way that you see people. Change that. Don't worry about all that. These people that are all worried about politics and trying to change the world, what they're doing is just trying to escape from their own spiritual dilemma and trying to make it into a collective thing. Forget that. It's not going to work. Work on yourself.
What prompted that question was a email from Alan in Northern California, out near you, Jay, was the idea, does Jay Weidner, can he recommend places that will be safe in the next few years to live? But I think you may have answered that.
I did, although Northern California is certainly a good place, and so is Texas. I wouldn't want to be on the East Coast. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near the Boston-Baltimore axis. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near Los Angeles. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near, say, Florida. Any place that has a lot of trouble getting water, any place that it gets very, very cold, it's going to be somewhat problematic.
Why cold? Why the cold places?
Well, you got to keep warm. And we're going to be in a severe energy diet, so to speak, coming very quickly.
I guess it's possible. We've had people on, and you read about the possibility of the sun doing some really strange things and frying the grids and all that. Is that in the possibility range?
Oh, it is. I mean, the sun is really acting strange, and fortunately, the sunspots have returned, but went 2 years without any sunspots.
Oh, have they started coming back now?
Yeah, they started coming back about a week ago, and which is good news, I think. I'm not sure.
Well, thanks a lot, Joe.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Some people say that when the sunspots return, that means that the sun is going to get really active, and we are heading towards the solar maximum in 2012. Which but again, we can't go on worrying about what the sun is going to do, just like worrying about what the football team is going to do. We can't do that. We have to say, okay, fine and dandy, there's going to be earth changes. There's always earth changes, but we're not going to live our lives worried about what's going on.
I really resonate to what you were saying about fear and the kind of in closing this morning, Jay Weidner, the idea of, you said, well, we don't die, so what's there to be afraid of? How did you come to that conclusion in Jay Weidner's life?
Well, I almost died, and
so you actually experienced yourself out of the body.
Yeah, and I realized that I was an infinite being living in an infinite universe, and that all my ideas of finite universes and finite being were just crap and put on me by the powers that be to freeze me in the moment. And as soon as I was released of that fear, then everything that I wanted in this world began coming to fruition.
That's really a blessing, isn't it? Because I've been blessed with that experience many times of knowing that I'm not the body or the mind. And once you do that, once you have that blessing, then the game is over, really, or just begun, I guess.
It is. It's just begun, and you're probably going to lose some friends, and family's going to think you're pretty dang weird.
Well, they've always thought that.
Yes.
I just got back from visiting my family in St. Louis, and they still think I'm crazy.
Oh yeah, my family thinks I'm
just totally nuts. Just
and
totally
I think
nuts.
They're completely crazy. So, I sit down at their Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, and it's GMO potatoes and turkey that's made out of I don't know what, but it smelled god awful, and I'm like, why are we eating this crap?
It's just amazing. I was with having a dinner with some friends of my brother, and he was going on and on about his acid reflux, and it's just terrible. And my brother said something to him. Well, Patrick he knows about this stuff, and he. And so the guy said, well, what can you tell me? I said, well, you don't really have too much acid. You don't have enough acid. About 95% of the people, it's not enough acid. And if you get more acid, well, then your digestion will improve and it'll go away, right? So the first thing he said to me, God love me, he said, no, well, I'm one of the 5%, and I definitely have not enough acid. I mean, too much acid because my doctor knows what he's doing. And I said, well, how long have you had it? He said, about 4 years. He said, I can't eat anything, but I got a good doctor. So it's like, I just smiled at him and said, well, I understand. And that was it, of course, because what are you going to do?
You can't do anything.
What are you going to do? God love them. Some people just want to have their experience.
They do, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you just have to shrug your shoulders and go on. You did the right thing. You gave him the right advice, and he didn't take it. So your responsibility at that point is over. But you had to say it. And
so do you think? That's my question. Do you think we do have to say it?
Yes. I think the biggest mistake we're making right now
is not saying it. We need to confront every one of these people all the time. And if they think and they get uncomfortable with us, or they don't invite us to their house or their parties anymore, then that's kind of what the hit you have to take. You have to be completely unafraid. And I guarantee you keep saying it, and pretty soon you're going to be on the radio, and you're going to be being broadcast, and you're going to find articulation and erudition in your words because you will gain confidence in your idea. And at this point, I'm absolutely 100% convinced that we have to speak our truth constantly. And when we hear someone who is saying something that we know is diametrically opposed to the true spiritual condition of this world, we have to correct them. And we can do it with love and compassion,
absolutely.
Can't we?
Yes,
we
should.
So they hear us.
They hear us. You don't do it with anger. Then you're just falling into their trap. So no, it has to be well thought out. It has to be generous. It has to be loving. And it has to be happy. And you have to show them that this world that's coming is not negative. It's a positive thing.
Well, Jay Weidner, you're just a joy to talk to. It was an honor to have you on the show. Now, that film you talked about, The Infinity, where is that available?
SacredMysteries.com, Infinity, The Ultimate Trip, Greg Braden, Neil Donald Walsh, Daniel Brinkley, all the near-death experience guys are in it. Brian Weiss. It's the greatest film about life. If you know someone who's dying, get it for them because it'll change the way they view the world and what's about to happen to them. If you're afraid of dying or you know someone who's afraid of dying, get the film. Change your life.
And that's at the Sacred Mysteries.
SacredMysteries.com. SacredMysteries.com.
And just in a few seconds, 30 or so, what's Jay Weidner up to in 2010? Where are you off to?
I'm making a feature film, my first feature film.
Really? Congratulations. On what?
It's called the Bird People, and it's about the coming world and how we can live, survive, and thrive in the age that's coming at us.
The Bird People.
Yep.
I like that. All right, Jay Weidner, thanks a lot. Have yourself a very good new year and have fun.
You too, man.
Okay, man. Good talking to you.
Bye.
Jay Weidner, jayweidner.com. Well, there you have it. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? Holy cow. I enjoyed that. Hope you did. Andrew Goss, tomorrow we're going to talk about the real world of money. And as Jay alluded to, there's some curious things going on there. We're going to talk to John Hogue tomorrow about predictions for 2010 and Nostradamus kind of stuff. Kind of a special. That'll be on this week for you. On Thursday, Rob Kirby up in Canada talking about the world economic situation from a Canadian viewpoint. We had Adrian Salbucci from down in South America, in Argentina, yesterday. And then next week, a lot of cool things. Brian Peskin, David Jubb, Andrew Goss, Primal Body, Amy Prohl, and Bacteriality. Good stuff. My name is Patrick Timpone. I love you all very much. It's an honor for me to be here with you each morning. Pass on these links to everyone that you care about. We'll see you tomorrow with Andrew at 10 o'clock. Take care of yourself. Know the Source on One Radio Network. Which I know we do. So we all incarnated here to kind of have a party together, do you think?
Yeah, a little bit like that. I think we have to remember this thing about free will. We all have free will. That means that we can choose where to go in any moment, okay? But there is destiny and fate, okay? And there is a map, let's say. And so, yeah, if you're traveling from Los Angeles to New York, you have free will to go down to Texas first, hit Florida, go up the East Coast, or go up to California, travel across North Dakota into Canada to get to New York, or you can take, Freeway 80 or 70 and get right there as fast as you want. Yes, you have the free will to choose which way you're going, but you do not have free will to stop where you're going. You're going to go to a certain place. How you get there is your choice.
Yeah, but if we don't have free will only to a point, then it's really not free will. It's free will with an asterisk on it.
It is. It's a caveat. It's not. It's free will, but it's free will within the game plan.
Yeah, but could it be free will? Let's speak for Patrick, that I chose to be here at this time because I knew that there was going to be some really curious things happening. So I thought, well, this would be a great time to incarnate because then I can evolve spiritually. So even though mountains may fall down or some dumb stuff, it was still my choice to be here.
Definitely.
Because my destiny is God realization.
That's right, and you came here, and I do believe that you came here, and I did too, for this moment. I think we all did.
Yeah.
And so you chose to come here for this moment, realizing that you have no control within that moment. In other words, you don't have any control over what's really going to happen here on a physical level. You came here to groove with it and to dig it and to understand it and to let it take you. So the best analogy is really the surfer. I'm an old surfer, and a surfer has to be a good athlete. It's true, but a good athlete will not make you a good surfer. A good surfer what makes a surfer good is not athleticism. What makes a surfer good is intuitive knowledge of how waves work. And he doesn't force the wave. He knows